Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Very much, everybody, for joining me once again. Saj Sadek here for PakPassion, bringing you another exclusive interview. Delighted to be joined once again by former South African pacer, a fearsome opponent for any batter during his playing days. 64 tests, 224 wickets at a brilliant average of 22.32, played 30 ODIs, taking 41 wickets, brilliant economy rate of 4.62, played 70-20 I's as well. 13-year international career, wonderful career as well. Popular in county cricket, and he was the Pakistan bowling coach in 2021. And these days, we hear him on our television screens on a regular basis. The one and only Vernon Philander. Vern, nice to be chatting to you again.
Yeah, good evening, Zach. Always a pleasure chatting to you. And I mean, what better time? After South Africa obviously beat Pakistan in the second Test match. So yeah, all smiles at the moment.
I was just going to say, Vern, you look very happy today.
I am indeed. I think, we all know how difficult it is to obviously go to the subcontinent and get wins, let alone on the kind of surfaces that they have been playing on. So I think I've got a very good reason to smile and be happy about. But I think it's a speak obviously volumes of where this team has come from. I think there was a lot of doubt about this team heading into that World Test Championship. But I think just the way they've united again. To beat Pakistan on home soil, in testing conditions. Yeah, I think again just speaks volume of the character of this team at the moment.
I guess it comes down to mental toughness, Vern. You've been comprehensively beaten in the first match. Tough conditions, away from home. Everybody's thinking, yeah, Pakistan are going to win this series. And this South African team, they're never beaten, really, are they?
Yeah, I think it's really a part of the DNA, of South African sport at the moment. I think if you look at the rugby, if you look at the cricket, football, they're disqualified, for the World Cup as well. So there's really a big buzz. I think the word that comes to mind is probably belief. Just the way the guys obviously conduct themselves on the field, the sort of positive energy, feeding off each other. I think it's always difficult, that first test match, when you come to the subcontinent, not knowing conditions that well. I suppose, the guys these days with the amount of cricket they play, there's not that many warm-up games. So that first test match is always a tricky one, trying to get used to conditions. But I think the second test match, you could see, the guys could adapt to the conditions. They have been a lot more assertive, a lot more positive in their decision making. So, yeah, I mean, a massive innings. And it's something also that we pride ourselves on, that lower order runs, those lower order partnerships. I think, for a period of time, South Africa perhaps out of the game, but, that little partnership between Mutasamy and Keshav Maharaj really got them back into the contest. And that's what Test match cricket is about. You play on difficult surfaces. That third innings become also important. And if you can match that, you're the team batting first. With your first innings, if you can be sort of even Stevens, you'll give yourself an opportunity of winning a Test match. But I think to go 100 and a bit ahead, I think that was Pakistan blown out of the Test match.
I guess we're all thinking a third Test match would have been wonderful, Vern.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we all sit in and we almost, pulling out our hairs as to why, we only have two Test match series these days, especially, with your, I don't want to say minor countries, but I think South Africa has definitely earned the right, to be playing these Test match series as a bare minimum, being the World Test Championships. The World Test Champion. So, probably a little bit disheartening, that the series will go down as a 1-1 draw.
Just focusing on the spinners, Harmer and Maharaj. I mean, Maharaj sort of has been under the radar. He hasn't got that high profile that some of the spinners have around the world, but he's just been a fantastic operator for South Africa. And then Harmer, I mean, he's only played 11 tests. I was looking at his numbers and he made his test debut in 2015. What a performance by the spin duo.
Yeah, I think you talk about Keshav Maharaj. He's really earned his stripes. I think also he's played in perhaps sides, where the seamers and the pacers, obviously were dominating, and all the hype, the talk, will go to the seamers when we talk, obviously home conditions in South Africa. Very often the spinner plays the role of holding obviously doing the holding job. So yeah, I mean, he's really coming to the fore. I think the last sort of 18 months, 24 months, it doesn't really matter the format. I think you look at his numbers in T20 cricket, in ODI cricket. I mean, I think he was the number one ODI bowler, obviously not so long ago. So probably one of the hardest workers in the game. I think, whilst I was playing, obviously Test match cricket for South Africa, yeah, I haven't seen a guy work, any harder than Keshav Maharaj. I think he'll be the first out to bowl in the mornings. He'll be the last to pack up his bag. So he really, really deserves every single accolade coming his way. But yeah, again, look, I mean, he's just getting better and better. You talk about Simon Harmer, obviously a lot of county cricket experience under the belt. And you can see that coming to the fore, when these guys get the opportunity, because they know what it takes, to go and earn that opportunity, number one. But I think number two, they're not going to let it up. Yeah, they're not going to pass that baton on to the next guy, very easily. So yeah, I mean, Simon Harmer also taking his 1,000th first-class wicket. Another massive accolade, to Simon. But again, probably two of the hardest workers, in the modern game.
What did you see as the biggest difference between that South African team in the second Test match compared to the first Test, Vern? I know you mentioned about being familiar with the conditions, and obviously Maharaj came into the team, but they seemed very comfortable in that second Test.
I think for me personally, you look at how they've played in the first Test match. Yes, you could see there was a lot of uncertainness. Guys were unsure of certain shots. I think the second Test match, they were a lot more. Perhaps were a lot more comfortable in their decision making. I think we've also seen a lot of sweep shots, a lot of reverse sweeps, being played in that second Test match. But also, I think the surface in the second Test match perhaps a little better than the one that we've seen in the first. Where guys felt a little bit more comfortable once they're in. But again, I think I talk about the lower order runs. That is so important, and I mean that is something that you can't just give teams. You either get blown away or you put up a fight. But I think for years in South African cricket, the lower order runs is something that we really pride ourselves in, when the team do get themselves into trouble. And yeah, I think you look at Sennaru Mutasamy and you look at his numbers, it's amazing. I mean, the amount of knockouts, that he has behind his name. So he's certainly a player that, when the team is in trouble, you want him at the crease towards the back end, forming those lower order partnerships. But I think to get back to your point, yeah, I think the guy's probably... Yeah, just a lot more comfortable, I think, in that second Test match, as opposed to the first Test match. Look, a lot of these players, they play these T20 leagues around the world at the moment, so the surface are generally very good. I think, when you get onto a surface that, that does turn, it does take a bit of time for these players to make that adjustment. But I think that's also, one key area where South Africa has been so good over the years is making that adjustment quite early. And again, like I said, it's sad to see, a two Test match series, because you almost feel that both teams are at the verge of, giving their best heading into their third Test match. So yeah, a bit disappointing to see a two Test match. But I think wonderful cricket being played by both teams. Let's the debut that Asif had, I mean, for a 38-year-old to make his debut and to deliver that kind of performance for his team, I mean, wonderful to see.
A feather in the cap also for Aiden Markram, who had to take over as captain in place of Temba Bavuma as well. Vern, it's not easy to go out there and captain in the subcontinent, is it, and come away with a 1-all series.
Yeah, look, I think he's probably one of the smarter brains, in South African cricket, Aiden Markram. When you speak to him, his cricketing knowledge, his in-depth understanding of the game. So no surprises that, the coach took his turn team in the absence of Temba Bavuma, but a wonderful leader. I think, might not have obviously had the runs that he was after in the series, but yeah, he's just a wonderful, wonderful leader. I think gives it his all in the field, and that's what really spurs people on. And I think, when you tour subcontinent, you need a guy like that, to find a bit of motivation from somewhere. I mean, we all know sometimes the game almost just feels like it's meandering on and dying a slow death. And that's very often when you look up to your leader. And I think he's done a wonderful job. Like I said, just the energy that he brings into the changing room, the calmness. Obviously, there's a lot of youngsters in that team at the moment, so they need a senior figure to really, command the troops. And I think he's done a wonderful job in doing just that.
Where do you think Pakistan went wrong, Vern? I mean, the tactics are very predictable. South Africa knew what they were going to expect in that second test match. Do you think Pakistan were a little bit too predictable?
Yeah, I think for me, if I look at the performance, I think there were stages in the game where they could have really commanded the game. I think they could really bet South Africa out of the game completely. But a couple of soft wickets, let South Africa back into the contest. I think, yeah, I'm going to cast my mind back even to the first test match, where I think they had a wonderful day one, and then day two in the morning, lost a couple of quick wickets. So just letting the team in, and I think those are talking points that you need to sit down with your senior players and say, let's be a little bit more alert, and mindful, when we get ourselves into these positions where we can really take the game away from the opposition, because we all know playing in the subcontinent, your first innings is of paramount importance. I think that's where you win or lose the game. And I think in both these games, look, I mean, you've done wonderfully well to, obviously win the toss, number one. But I think if you're going to bat first, you need to make it count. And I just feel in both test matches, they've actually allowed South Africa back into the test match where I feel personally they've had opportunity to really bury South Africa with the bat in hand.
And the Pakistan spinners, one 38-year-old, one 39-year-old, they're nearly as old as you, Vern, and you retired many years ago.
What you're trying to say? Yeah, there's still hope for me.
Yeah, I think so. Look, you can make a comeback.
I think, again, I mean, we talk about experience, but experience means nothing if you can't put on, the performances out in the field. And I mean, Nauman, he's been a fantastic role model for, for Pakistan cricket. I think the way he's also come in form over the last sort of 18 months, the control that he brings, I think that is just important. When you play in subcontinent, very often as an opposition kind of player, you look, where you can score quickly. But he's the one bowler that you almost know, listen, he's going to be going at twos, so we need to be a little bit more cautious against him. Although you want to look at attacking options, I don't think he's the one bowler that you can out and out target. So I think both of these bowlers, I mean, probably in the prime of their careers. Look, I mean, we talk about experience. I don't think you're going to get any more experience than being 38 and 39-year-old of age. But yeah, wonderful to see them, performing. Obviously putting in those performances for Pakistan, and hopefully, they can still be around for the next little while.
Just looking at the two setups, Cricket South Africa and the Pakistan Cricket Board, Vern, there seems to be a stability within South African cricket. The players are coming through. They look ready for international cricket. I think we've spoken about that before. Whereas in Pakistan, there's a lot of chopping and changing, and captains are changing, and players are changing, the coaches are changing. But, how would you compare the two setups?
Yeah, I think South Africa, perhaps in the last sort of, I would say probably the last sort of 2 years, found that stability in Sukri Conrad. I think the one reason for that being he's worked with it under 19 squads, so he knows the youngsters coming through the ranks, understanding obviously what kind of youngsters are in the pipeline. But also I think it brings stability from a player's perspective as well, knowing that the coach is going to be around for a little while. So, the vision of the coach, what he's expecting, from you as a player. And it's a two-way street. As opposed to Pakistan, I think you talk about, chopping and changing coaches. I think from a player, you need that continuity. You need, that coach to back you. You need that belief from the top structure in order for you as a player to blossom as well. And I just feel from time to time that chopping and changing happens too quickly and too often as well. So, I mean, every coach is going to walk into that dressing room with a different mindset, with a different approach. And as a player, you need to make that adapt. You need to adapt according to, what the coach wants, obviously from you as a player. So I just feel that's where the volatility comes in, and that's where there's perhaps not as stable as South Africa at the moment, where I think Sukri Conrad has obviously sat down his troops and said, listen, this is my 16 players I'm taking with me over the next, 24, 36 months. And that communication can happen because, he's going to be there ultimately, and whereas opposed to Pakistan at the moment, I just think, there's too many chop and change. And from a player point of view, I don't think you can find stability as a pattern of play. Number one, I think, we talk about styles of plays these days. So, yes, I mean, obviously, they split the roles now, but even then, there's going to be different messages, from the two different coaches. I'd love, we talk about talent. I think I spoke to you about this before. I don't think there's a lack of talent in Pakistan cricket. You talk about the PSL, you talk about the the caliber of players that you see on display. You look at the caliber of players that you see on display in the SA20. I don't think there's a massive difference when we talk about talent. It's about how you manage the talent. And again, I'd love to see a bit more stability from the top in terms of your selection, your coaching staff, that sort of thing, just to drive the team for a period of time. Whether it's a 4-year period, where players can have some sort of continuity as to, what's expected from them, number one, but more importantly, grow in confidence in the playing style that's expected of them.
And finally, Vern, you're off to Pakistan shortly, I know, to commentate in the white ball series. Excited about going back to Pakistan and commentating on the white ball series, which should be a fantastic series.
Thoroughly looking forward to it. Look, I mean, I've been there obviously at the start of the year, doing a bit of the PSL. But look, I think it's going to be a crack of a series. I think the T20's first up. Look, I don't think there's any better batting wickets, than being in Pakistan. So I think the batters are definitely going to lick their lips. But it's also an opportunity for bowlers to go and test themselves. Obviously, probably some of the better batting conditions, like I've just said. So it's going to be a challenge for the bowlers, but I'm certainly looking forward to see how those bowlers are going to adapt, to obviously, conditions where it is really, really batter friendly. But again, I think you look at both these teams and what they have on paper. I think it's going to be a very, tightly contested series between the two sides. Pardon me.
Thank you very much for your time, Vern. Have a brilliant time in Pakistan. I'm sure you will. I know you love the country, and I know the people out there in Pakistan love you as well. So have a great time, safe flight, and let's hope it's a great series.
Thank you much. Thank you so much, Zach. It's always a pleasure, man.